Good morning, good afternoon. How you doing? It's Dwayne Stratford, NERC Compliance Director here at TRC, and I'm here today with Mr. Dylan Eshe, and we're here to talk about extreme cold weather here in the industry and the new standard EOP 12-2. And Dylan, if you can just give yourself a brief introduction of who you are and where you work at and all that good stuff, that'd be great.
Yes, thanks, Dwayne. Hi, everyone. My name is Dylan Ashley. I work for TRC. I've been here at TRC for over 21 and a half years. I am based in Augusta, Maine. I am the manager of our Generation Engineering Services Group. And one of the services that we provide are NERC compliance consulting services, whether it's studies, reports, evaluations, gaps analysis, audits, everything that generator owners and operators need to meet their compliance standards.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that intro. And I know over the last year and a half, 2 years that I've been here, we've worked on some NERC compliance engagements. We talked about supporting in particular generator owners, generator operators, worked on some FAC aid engagements, making sure facility ratings are good to go. But I know one of the big things that is out there now is EOP 12, and I know we're on the new version of it, EOP 12-2, and looking at extreme cold weather events. I know when we had Storm Uri down in Texas and had extreme cold weather that led to some unfortunate timing with deaths and outages to the grid, and you had folks out in extreme cold weather. What are some of the things that you've seen as it relates to folks coming to us talking about extreme cold weather for that standard?
Yeah, I see a lot of clients more in the regions where extreme cold weather events are rare. Here in the northeast or northern parts of the United States, a lot of our customers have to go through the standards, but they're more set up for cold weather events. It's part of the normal operating guidelines and procedures that they follow. But other areas in the country, the southeast, the lower Midwest, the Southwest, where extreme cold weather events are more rare or becoming not as rare as they have in the past. They've reached out to us to evaluate, are they prepared for cold weather events? Have they done everything that they need to withstand cold weather and operate under cold weather events? Whether it's just evaluations or even site surveys to see how they're set up and arranged and their programs on cold weather events.
Okay, because it seems like there would be a great opportunity for like peer meetings, especially with folks like up in Canada, up in the upper Midwest that have gone through those extreme cold weathers. I know that Nebraska, Minnesota in particular, Wisconsin, it seems like they have a lot of experience dealing with, especially with the renewables, like with wind turbines, keeping them going through extreme cold weather, and having those opportunities to just have peer reviews or peer discussions, just trying to get a feel for, is there something that could be arranged? This is something that should be arranged where you have like MRO and ERCOT have regular ongoing meetings, especially in the fall, getting ready for the cold weather. What are the things that you can think of that folks can do just proactively getting ready for the cold weather periods of January through March, and things they can do in the fall in preparation for winterization?
So I think it's a good idea that entities in regions of the country or the continent that experience cold weather events talk to their colleagues and industry partners in areas that don't have extreme cold weather events to go over lessons learned, practices that they take, methods that they take, procedures that they use. For regions that don't experience cold weather as much and need to really focus on the standard, get cold weather plans in place. Do reviews of how your operations react to cold weather events. It could be as easy as just keeping turbine bay doors closed during turbine events. A lot of these areas in the country, for example, I did a survey of a site in Oklahoma. A lot of the times during the year, the bay doors are open in certain areas where there are critical equipment, and just keeping them closed to keep the cold weather out is just a process to meet the standard of what it says to keep in operations and keep running to keep the grid stabilized. So I think getting plans in place, reviewing those plans, going over areas that are critical, fuel supply, whether it's natural gas, coal, or renewables with wind and solar, ways to maintain your operations during these events. And if you need help on that, and TRC is a company that can help you there.
Yeah, that's always great because again, a lot of times it's a two-way street. It has to be mutual. Where, in particular, whether it be folks in ERCOT reaching out or folks in MRO or in the Reliability First or MPCC that have dealt with extreme weather conditions come on through. But it has to be a function where it's mutually beneficial for all parties involved. Everybody sharing the knowledge, the information, and then even using NERC and FERC as a conduit for all that information to be processed into a single clearinghouse, and then to send that out as it relates to lessons learned throughout the course of the year. Another point of interest that I think we have a lot of valuable information available would be through EMS and SCADA systems, being able to sift back through all that archival operational information and kind of see the before, during, and after, and kind of see how the stage was set for operating conditions, and being able to sift back through all that information and see what the impact was on the grid in order to be able to tell where the vulnerabilities were, to see where the excessive load flows were on the system, to see where there were voltage concerns, and then maybe come back around. I know with TPL 008, they're looking at adding that extreme weather event, extreme hot, extreme cold on that. And it might be something to explore with EOP 12, looking at real-time information, looking at EMS SCADA systems to be able to review, maybe see where there's some reactive resource deficiencies on the grid, maybe see where you can leverage any overflows, and maybe look for the most limiting series element to improve the thermal capability on the grid. Do you find that most folks from a generation standpoint that run the risk of curtailments or congestion look at that information from an archival standpoint to see where they could potentially improve transfer capability from their location out to the various parts of the grid?
Yes and no. I know I would say a lot of the generator owners who are big conglomerates, big companies have that capability. But we see a lot of smaller entities, one maybe only own one generation site or a couple or very few, may have too much on their plate to really follow on those kinds of things and kind of take it as it comes, really, as if a cold weather event happens and they have an issue, kind of react to at that time because of all the day-to-day items that they need to ensure that they're running correctly. So yeah, we see a lot of the smaller types of companies reaching out to help in some of that, those backgrounds and some of that information. Whether it's what is my critical cold temperature in this area, or what things can I do with my plan to ensure that I'm not going to not be able to run during a cold weather event, no matter how rare they are. You may only see one in a couple-year time frame, but they are becoming more prevalent in areas that have not been susceptible to these cold weather events in the past. So I think it's it can help if some of these companies just reach out and ask for support in some of these areas and subject matter experts to get them in the right place where if a cold weather event happens, they can make it through without any issues or destabilization to the power grid.
Very good. Very good. Now, as it relates to generator owners today, what are some of the key pain points that you're seeing with the generator owners today as it relates to anything from infrastructure or operational efficiency? What are some of the things that you're seeing for them to maybe proactively think ahead and anticipate some of those pain points and try to mitigate the risk of them?
I think especially on the small, like I mentioned before, the small operators that don't have the huge staff, whether it's a corporate office or a large staff on site, just having people aware of what the NERC standard is asking, what the definitions are. And EOP 12 has been gone around through the industry a lot with suggestions and changes and recommendations. So it's been a changing process, I should say, through the whole process of these standards and the new revisions. So, best thing to do on any site, identify your critical cold weather components that need to be protected and need to be operable for the plant to operate in any event. You don't want to be in a situation where you have equipment starting to fail on a cold weather event that you can't operate or start or continue to operate your plant, which would cause a possibility of the plant coming offline and destabilizing or the grid, or making it more harder for the local authorization body to maintain electricity throughout the area. And then proper plans to put those processes in place, taking the time. I mean, an event could come up on you very quickly. Being in an area that's not susceptible to cold weather changes. I mean, a storm with only a couple days notice could come in the area and bring precipitation that's not prevalent in an area, snow, ice, freezing rain, that other area of the country, it's kind of known in that time of the season. So I think just having a plan in place that can be implemented quickly in the event of an event that needs to be taken seriously.
Very well. Definitely. And then as it relates to implementing plans, how do you approach implementing plans to mitigate the risk of reliability impacts due to extreme cold weather on applicable generating units?
So those plans need to have proper steps and procedures to take into account what the station needs to do during a cold weather event. These plans and procedures should be pulled out and reviewed by plant staff and maybe a consulting engineering firm like TRC to go over what needs to be done prior to these events happening. And that should be done well in advance, in the fall time or very early winter, to get those plans in place, everything staged, ready to go. And everyone should be understand what needs to be done, from operators to maintenance personnel to engineers on site or within the organization, to have everything prepped and ready to go in the event that a short notice is given to an extreme cold weather event, whether it's, like I mentioned before, a storm or just cold air coming from the north in that particular area, so that the plant can operate as designed and as expected.
Right. The thing that got me when I got into the industry back in 94, 30 years ago, 30 plus now, the one thing that I always thought was fascinating working in an operations center was the fact how much weather does play on the grid.
Yeah.
I totally missed that connection of how extreme heat, extreme cold will lead to higher loads, will lead to more utilization, more wear and tear on the grid. And it's interesting how the cold weather standard evolved, where it was just kind of like an add-on on EOP 11, right? Where they add in some language for cold weather. And now they have a whole standard established from EOP 12 perspective. And can you think about how that evolution has come about, where before you can just add a little bit of language, but now we actually have to focus in on it and create another standard and all that other good stuff? Can you kind of like talk through with the generator owners out there as far as how that came to pass a little bit?
Yeah, I think it come from the event, like you mentioned earlier in this recording, about the lower Midwest or caught in the Texas area and other MPP service areas where they had an extreme cold weather event and they were losing generation, and that really pushed the industry to really think about that. I mean, in the southern areas of the United States, cold weather during construction and initial design of these facilities, if they're quite older, was not really on top of the items to really consider. You look at a facility in the northern part of the United States, their turbine building is probably insulated. In the southern part of the United States, it is not, and because they deal with more warmer weather and hot weather, and they need to dissipate heat in these areas quickly, they can't have it all insulated. So I think this one event really changed the industry on how you need to focus on cold weather to operate continuously. And other areas, a facility in Florida, they have to think about hurricanes. But that was already known before they were installed. Okay, high winds, a place in the Midwest, tornadoes, a place in the West Coast, earthquakes. So now that cold weather has now become an issue, it's known that cold weather events can hamper the ability to generate and distribute electricity through the grid. That it needs, the focus within the industry has changed on what happens when the temperature is very cold one day or extreme or through a week, and how we can maintain the operability of the power plant to do what we're expected to do.
Right. Yeah, and that makes all the difference in the world. And it's all about being having proactive anticipation, understanding that any event can happen. time in any place, and just not taking anything for granted. Which,
Correct.
and that's the thing that I love about the standards is the fact that it looks at past experience and past events that happen on the grid, and then it comes down to, hey, we have these standards over here, like we're transitioning into the IBR standards, the IBR inverter-based resource portion of standards to evolve with the industry. And I think with extreme weather, that's what it seems to be coming to, is that now not only do you have to plan for it, you have to operate under those conditions and you have to move forward. So right now we have it more from a preparedness standpoint. We have it in operations. I guess just as a bonus, could you see this potentially cropping into the TOP standards from a real-time operation standpoint? We have it in the EOP, emergency operations, but then again, monitoring temperature as a real-time value on the grid, because you have the weather stations everywhere. You can put probes in the substations, bring it back through the RTUs. Do you think there might be an opportunity down the road where you're actually confirming the temperature at the substations, and when you get below a certain threshold, that might spark an opportunity to look at, you've now crossed the threshold, you need to be going into extreme cold weather operations and confirm that everybody is operating to that. Do you see like different things like that potentially coming up in the industry?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, a lot of these critical cold weather temperatures that a plant is either designed to or needs to meet come from local weather stations, operated by a known source like NOAA. So a lot of, when we do evaluations at certain power plants, we look for the closest airport, large or small, because usually there's a NOAA weather station there with all the data for previous, 4, 5, 6 years or more, depending on what's been recorded. A way for everyone to be on the same page is have some kind of program in place so that when weather events, especially in regions, I'm not saying, if the region ERCOT is different than the NPCC or the Western area, but just in that area, have it set up so that when there's a cold weather event, everyone's notified or everyone knows that it's coming. Instead of following a weather application on their phone or something like that. So just getting that information out there, so operators are aware of it, and we see that. I'm sure they're looking at it daily and looking out 10, 14 days and saying, okay, we're going to get cold here. Let's make sure we start taking the proper precautions and start going through our procedures that we need to do to make sure we're in line to be ready for this cold weather event. Even if it doesn't happen, just go through the process.
Right. And I think the thing that I really enjoy about being in the power industry is the fact that we all share information so that we can all maintain success of keeping the lights on the grid. Because the last thing we want to do is it doesn't come down to where if they're up and we're down or vice versa. I mean, we all collectively want to make sure that we're on the grid, we're operating safely, reliably, and we're kind of watching each other's back. So I think as we share more of the lessons learned and we start establishing more reliable single sources of truth that everybody can kind of operate toward, then that builds that consistency where we're all operating together and collectively as one fine, well-tuned machine.
That's right. That's
as
right.
opposed to independent individuals, because we all have to coordinate together, 60 hertz frequency and the whole nine. So having that transparency across the different transmission interconnections and gen ties, that makes all the difference in the world on how we all collectively keep the lights on. Agreed. So that we can all, operate reliably. So I guess in closing here, do you have any other words of wisdom for generator owners, potentially operators, on how it relates to just keeping the lights on, how to improve their compliance posture, how to be more audit ready? Are there any other things that you can think of that would help our clients?
No, I would just be proactive. Don't be reactive, and keep, as part of your daily operations, keep in mind what your weather events are during the winter months, and follow temperature trends, and have procedures in place and start those and start reviewing those procedures early on. Don't wait till a cold weather event to start doing that. So everything's in place and prepared. Make sure you go through all your freeze protection within a facility. Make sure it's operational. If there's heaters, are they working? Are the thermostats working? Or my freeze protection on my piping, is it working? Just be proactive in your daily operational means, and you should be fine. But don't be afraid to bring in some help and to go over that, surveys, review of procedures, and any support and any help would be, I'm sure, greatly appreciated.
That is awesome. Good words to close on, words to live by, all that good stuff. So, Mr. Dillon, totally appreciate your time. Talk with us today on NERC Compliance Conversations. And for the folks out there, we look forward to catching you on another month of our NERC Compliance Conversations. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dwayne. Take care, everyone.
Take care.